Cat People is one of the most influential horror films. If you don't know, this film is often cited as the first film to use a jump scare. But this 1942 horror classic, directed by Jock Turner and produced by Val Lewton, is not just about that. It is also a masterpiece in exploring the themes of isolation, fear, and repression. While it starts as a seemingly straightforward monster movie with cats, it slowly but steadily morphs into a haunting examination of the human condition. This video essay will examine why Cat People is so profoundly depressing by analyzing its story, symbolism, and cultural aspects the film reference. When analyzing a film, there can be many theories used, but it all depends on what we want to uncover from the film. For example, film semiotics can be used to interpret how the film gives meaning to specific aspects of the film, like how the colors are used, or the angle, or the composition. Another example is the feminist film theory, which can be used to understand how films use stereotypes and how it can equally present the female gender in films. But for this film, the best way to understand its meaning is by using the 4 layers of meaning theory, originating from the book Film Art and Introduction by David Bordwell and Kristen Thompson. This film theory provides a structured way to analyze films by breaking them down into 4 distinct layers: referential meaning, explicit meaning, implicit meaning, and symptomatic meaning. Each layer offers a different lens for viewing films, allowing for deeper understanding. Let me show you what I mean by explaining each layer. Referential meaning is what the basic plot or the story of the film refers to in the real world, and how that can help us to understand the film better. It talks about how the story setting, the character's backstory, or other basic elements of the story refers to real-world aspects and help shape the film's meaning. I'll give you an example, using David Fincher's Seven. Seven's referential meaning can be seen in this sentence. In a dark, nameless city, a veteran and a rookie detective team up to solve the mysterious murders of several people, each related to one of the 7 deadly sins. The film concludes with the killer completing his plan. This simple plot summary highlights a real-world concept, which is the 7 deadly sins, and this reference helps to shape the film's meaning. The 7 deadly sins concept is deeply ingrained in our society, and the concept covers the basics of evil, which might connect easily to people. If in the film John Doe had used other motives, it might still work, but it wouldn't be as effective as using the 7 deadly sins. Explicit meaning is the clear, surface layer messages that the film show, which usually are the moral of the story. In the case of Seven, the film explicitly shows a story about the inevitability of evil and the struggle humans have with it. The film uses Morgan Freeman's character, Detective Somerset, as a tour guide through humans' relationship with evil.
This happened just last night, about 4 blocks from here.
Also, we can circle back to the referential meaning and see how this explicit meaning is shaped by referencing the 7 deadly sins. Meanwhile, implicit meaning delves deeper, analyzing the more subtle themes that aren't as immediately obvious to people. 7 implicitly explores the duality of being a human. Through the journey of Detective Somerset and Brad Pitt's character Detective Mills, we can see how both characters represent aspects that humanity usually went through when they went through life. Of course, interpretations may vary. Some people might see something that, according to them, are more obvious than other people. But that's the beauty of implicit meaning. It depends on how the audience pick apart the more subtle clues that the film puts in it. Finally, symptomatic meaning explores how the film implicates and relates to the societal and cultural context in which it was made. So by analyzing the film through this meaning, we can see how the current world situation or cultural context in which the film was bred through affected the form of the film. In the case of Seven, the film is a critique of modern cities in modern society, where the moral decay of its citizens ran rampant, causing the darkest side of humans to be in control. This meaning is born from the experience of Andrew Kevin Walker, the writer of the film, living in New York City in the late 1980s. To quote him, "So the idea, 7 deadly sin murders, was a reaction to living in New York and putting myself in a John Doe headspace where you could walk down the street and see every deadly sin on every street corner. From how the 4 layers of meaning work and the example explained before, we can see how this film theory offers many ways the film's meanings can be caught, making it an ideal film theory for analyzing cat people." Before we start, I'm sure some of you may not know the story of cat people, or even know that this film existed, so let me give you a summary of the film story. During the early 1940s in New York City, Irena Dubrovna, a Serbian immigrant, meets an American man named Oliver Reed. They quickly fall for each other.
You've looked at me in such a funny way.
You're the first friend I met in America.
Oliver even asks for her hand in marriage, despite her fear of the legend of her people being transformed into cat people when aroused. She says yes. But as said before, the fear is still there, and it keeps on holding her back, keeping her from consummating her marriage. While Oliver is understanding, he still wants more from this relationship. He persuaded Irena to meet a psychologist, Dr. Judd. At first, this experience annoys her after he accused her of fear just being a repressed childhood trauma. It got doubled and added with jealousy when she noticed that Oliver became increasingly distant from her and closer to her work friend Alice. The height of her jealousy is presented in a sequence when Alice swims in her apartment's pool. There, she is stalked by an animal, which is Irena in her cat people's form. After a meeting with Dr. Judd, she finally managed to overcome her fear. But when she tells her husband, Oliver says that it's too late, that he actually loves Alice and intends to divorce Irena. Fueled by anger and despair, she decides to kill Alice. But Irena backs off when Oliver begs her to let him and Alice go. But someone's dying that night, and it's Dr. Judd. She kills Dr. Judd in her apartment, but Irena suffers a life-threatening injury. And the film ends when Irena opens a cage which houses the panther that she likes to visit, and while it escapes, it attacks Irena, which leads her to her death. Cat people's referential meaning is in this sentence. Around early 1940s New York, a Serbian immigrant falls in love with an American man, despite her fear of transforming into a cat person, and her fear set her relationship to end tragically. This straightforward plot is enough for the audience to understand some context which is necessary for building the meaning of the film. The first one we can see is the setting of the film. Set in 1940s New York, there is some context that the audience gets from that. The time set for the film reminds us that the story of the film is coming from a time and place where the social ethics are more conservative, so the character's motivation and movement are in the constraint of that space. The other reference is Irena being an immigrant. This character's backstory helps us to understand her character's motivations and desires throughout the film. Being alone in a big city fueled her loneliness even more, especially with the culture shock. Now, many different aspects can be used that will share the same context of the film. The film could be set in the 1800s, or Irena could be an American. But as we're going to see as we explore the film's other meaning, this aspect of the film's basic element shapes a necessary context to understand the film even more. The explicit meaning of the film revolves around the dangers of repressing our true nature and desires. Cat people presents a clear warning. Repression, whether driven by fear, superstition, or societal pressure, may lead to an outburst that may endanger the person. Irena's belief in her curse and her subsequent attempts to suppress her sexuality create a fatal disconnect between her inner self and the world around her, showing us that honesty, openness, and reaching for help can release the pressure that we bottle inside. This meaning also shows us two significant things. First is how the referential meaning before helps to shape this meaning. The setting of the story, plus her character's backstory, help to lend this explicit meaning more merit. Secondly, this meaning already reflected to us how and why the film is so damn sad. Not being able to connect with people around you, being able to finally love, but not much due to your fear, and finally being able to confront the fear only to realize that it's too late. This alone is pretty much soul-crushing to me, but the next meaning will condemn the audience soul to the pit of eternal sadness. Beneath the surface, Cat People is a harrowing exploration of many problems humans face. Implicitly, the film is about sexual and religious repression, and also generational trauma. The main symbolism that can easily be seen is the religious symbolism. This meaning unconsciously tells us a metaphor for religious fear, which can be interpreted as a reflection of religious guilt and the fear of losing one's soul. She explained before in this scene.
Those who escaped, the wicked ones, their legend haunts the village where I was born.
The origin of her curse comes from how her village is the descendants of evil witches, and being born there, she fears that transforming into the Cat People can be seen as breaking the religion that she believed in. She fears breaking her belief, and wanting to do the right thing, she stays celibate. While this may be noble, she still forgoes her natural desires. Therefore, we can see how the religion she believes in can be seen as repressing to her. One of the many interpretations of the film implicit meaning that I've seen a lot online is the queer undertone of the film. Irena's fear of her arousal is not merely her struggle of repression, but also a fear of her unusual desire. Let's start with the religious repression before. The queer undertone not only reflects on the religious oppression, but also more. Not only seeing her transformation as something evil and against her religion, but as her fear of being gay. In the start, Irena accepts the love from Oliver, but not only out of her loneliness, but also because she wants to be normal, just like what her religion and society want. But as the relationship grows, she realizes that this isn't who she is. While the struggle continues, she noticed that Alice, another major woman character in the film, starts to get close to Oliver. She even looks more like Oliver's partner than Irena herself. This causes her jealousy, but not because she is stealing her man, but also because the character Alice, seeing another woman being able to be normal, having a heterosexual relationship, which Irena can't do, makes her upset. This is represented by her trying to scare her. After her appointment with Dr. Judd, she stated that she is no longer afraid, meaning she is no longer afraid of her desires. But when she is told that it's too late, she decides to kill Alice using her transformation. This can be seen as Irena using the part of her that she used to hate now as her power, symbolizing her self-acceptance. The most obvious self-acceptance act she does is where she finally decides to open the gate that keeps the panther in the zoo. This act can be seen as her final wish, wanting to spend her last moment with the people that went through the same emotion, repression, and guilt like her. My favorite interpretation of the implicit meaning is how this film is a representation of how Irena struggles against her generational trauma. Her curse is a legacy passed down from her ancestors. It is a burden that she cannot escape. This inherited trauma isolates her from those around her, creating a barrier that even love cannot overcome. Even when she starts a relationship with Oliver, the closeness reminds her of her trauma she and her family had before. That is why she keeps her distant. When she sees Alice, she is envious that somebody can have a normal life without having to experience her trauma. When she stated that she is not afraid anymore, it's her finally being able to process that bottled up trauma and continue trying to live normally. But when Oliver decides to divorce her, she realizes how eternal this trauma is, and that she will never be able to live normally. Therefore, she decides to be with the only thing that has always been with her, from the start to the end: her trauma, her cats. On a symptomatic level, Cat People reflects the struggles and anxieties faced by immigrants. Irena's sense of alienation and isolation reflects the immigrant experience of feeling like an outsider in the land that you live in. She carries with her the traditions, beliefs, and traumas of her homeland, which those around her do not understand or accept. This cultural disconnect is symbolized by her fear of the curse, a legacy from her ancestors that she cannot escape, despite her attempts to live a normal life in America. The pressure to assimilate is evident in Irena's relationship with Oliver. Her marriage to him can be seen as an attempt to integrate into American society and embrace its norms. But this comes at the cost of denying her own identity and heritage. Irena's struggle between keeping her relationship with her partner and keeping her beliefs of the cat people's curse can be seen as the immigrants' challenge of balancing their cultural roots with the demands of assimilation. The ending of the film highlights the importance of maintaining the balance between both. If we try to distance ourselves from the new country that we live in currently, we will remain alone and difficult to be understood by others. On the other hand, if we try too much to let go of our heritage, the guilt and shame of doing it might haunt and traumatize us. In Irena's case, that guilt and shame hurts her so much that she decides if she dies being with her people, perhaps she may lessen the pain of the guilt and the shame of letting go of her heritage. In conclusion, by analyzing cat people, we can see how it is also influential in how to present a story, especially in the horror genre, using its limitations as a jumping start to explore deeper issues humans have. From isolation, repressions, and even the immigrant experience, to name a few, we can see that by applying the 4 layers of meaning theory to it, we can uncover intricate ways in how Irena's journey reflects broader societal issues. The many ways of interpreting this film are also why this film is so depressing. It's not just because the film talks about depressing stuff, it's also because of how much depressing stuff is in it. The straightforwardness of the story allows a lot of people from different backgrounds to identify their own problems and how those problems are being explored, which in the end, cat people ultimately serves as a haunting reminder of the amount of sadness in this world, making it a timeless and profoundly depressing masterpiece that resonates deeply with audiences even today.
That's all, folks.
Thank you everyone for watching this video essay. If you want more video essays like this, where I explore unknown film, make sure to show love, like the video and subscribe.